Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rui Diaz through the middle to crown it for Seattle!
The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is campeón!
All creatures great and small! De la Vega! ¡No me pongo de pie! ¡De rodillas!
You know, what was the thought process in terms of who you decided to use and who you didn't?
Ever since Sounder at Heart wrote a commentary that we didn't take the Open Cup seriously.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes on the Sounder at Heart podcast network. It is Friday. We are here at Lumen Field today. I'm joined by Niko Moreno for another episode of What We Learned This Week. And mostly what we learned is how the situation at defensive midfield or the pivot is sort of coming together.
Jeremiah, we are here at Lumen, somewhere where we haven't been in a while. It feels like we haven't been here since Club
Leagues
World Cup.
Well, Leagues Cup final.
Leagues Cup, that's what it is. I went way back there. Yeah, Leagues Cup for sure. That's how long it's been that we just can't even point it out. But it is good to be back. It is good to see the team. And I thought it was interesting that they made that change late in the week, and that's a good. I thought it was a good idea just to get the guys back in rhythm to this specific surface, right? So I thought it was important.
Yeah, it was. I always like having training sessions here because it's a lot closer to my house. A little longer drive for you.
Yes,
but it is. I don't know. It always lends itself to a good training atmosphere. And it usually means it's not going to be a super long training session too.
They do seem to be more on schedule here. That's a great point.
Yes.
Yeah, it is a little farther, but I do like the knowing exactly when it's gonna be over, right? And Brian's usually right on time, and whoever is next or before Brian's right on time. So right. We definitely get a little bit more structured there. But it has been a good training sessions across this week. I've been very interested on focusing on a couple of players, some for health concerns, others just to see in what type of form and shape they're in. So I don't know if you want to start there or where you want to start there, boss man.
I mean, let's start with the Snyder Brunell.
I like it.
Christian Roldan partnership, which seems to be the direction that Brian Schmetzer is going to go. The other options ostensibly were Albert Rusnak moving back a line, possibly Danny Leyva going in next to Christian Roldan, maybe even João Paulo, and we might see all of those players get time there, but it looks like Snyder Brunell is going to be the one who gets the first crack.
Yeah, and I think a collective effort to replicate a lot of the things that Obed does is the right approach. Yeah. And you do have a deep team. You do have a team of individuals willing to play team ball, which is important because today I was very impressed at what I heard from Albert Rusnak, a guy who is the highest paid player on your roster. He is kind of the the main guy, if you really think about where he was last year and he being a DP level type of soccer player. And George, we got to give him credit. Great question. Asked him if he'd be willing to play back a line now that Obed was gone. And he said, yeah, man, I'm all about it. I'm for the team. It's all about what gets us wins. I don't think that any player should be above the team and want to play a specific position. So love that answer. But Snyder is the guy. And I have been very happy with Snyder when he plays that position. I wasn't as happy to see him in the wing. I thought that he was fine. He was okay, serviceable there, but
not his strengths.
Not his strengths, absolutely. But when he plays the pivot, I really enjoy his read on the ball, his read on the field, his field awareness. I think that he gets to the spots he needs to get to. He's also a very good passer, and he's not making incredible key passes, but his accuracy and the quickness in which you make a pass a lot of times doesn't get enough importance. Sometimes a player can take too long in that pivot area and slow down a transition moment or slow down a specific attack.
Or miss a window.
And he does a good job at doing none of those things. And so I'm interested to see how him and Christian play together.
I am too. And I think that he does the best job of sort of replicating what they want from Obed. He is a similarly two-way player. You don't have to worry about the defensive effort. You don't have to, but you know that he can still get into the attack, that he is good around the box. Even in the game against Austin, he didn't convert that chance, but the fact that he was in the position to get the chance that he got in the first half was a good sign, I thought. And so I think with Snyder, one of the things that coaches always say with young players is they want predictability. And I think Snyder is giving Schmetzer that sort of predictability. He knows what he's going to get from him. And I think that, we'll see how long he plays there. But I think it makes a lot of sense to me why he's the guy who Schmetzer trusts most, even though I think you could make an argument that Danny Leyva deserves a shot at the position. But it really does seem like they see Danny as farther up the field at this point.
And that's a great point, because I don't want our liking for Brunell at the pivot to indicate in any way that we don't rate Danny Leyva high. But the reality is that his attributes on the field seem to be used better higher up the field. So when he's came on for Albert Rusnak at the camp, that's when I feel like he's made the more influential games. That's where he has been a player that you could almost see being a constant rotating piece there. And look, once again, I'm always going to say this because I was the first one to bring that up to Mr. Brian Schmetzer. And I think that that's a great position for him. But unfortunately for Danny Leyva, those minutes are hard to come by anyways, because Ferreira has been a guy that clearly is the second at that position. But now that everybody's healthy, now that you can pick and choose where you put people, I am totally okay with having Danny Leyva be that guy that perhaps comes in for Albert at times, because you don't want to ask too much of Ferreira either, because he's a guy that we can play with a guy like Danny Leyva. So I like that. I feel like right now Brian is seeing this roster as good as I've seen him read a roster over the last, 5 years. So I'm encouraged by it. And I think that Danny could be a guy that could get more minutes up there. And going back to the pivot, when he comes to Snyder, he's also going to have the support of a guy like Joe Pablo, who has looked good all week, who I see with a demeanor in him that he clearly wants to get back on the field, but he wants to be productive. Every time that I've got to talk to him off the mics, I feel a sense that he just wants to help the team win. And if that is closing a game out, like Brian Schmetzer indicated earlier this week, that JP could be that guy, then he's good for it. So I really do think that the Snyder JP combo is going to be the way to start more games, unless something goes terribly wrong, and there needs to be a change.
Right. Yeah, I think that there seems to be a coherent plan, and there seems to be a strategy on how to utilize each of these players, which I think makes a lot of sense. One of the big X factors that we have talked about throughout the year, though, and really might be the single biggest thing in determining the Sounders' ceiling, is the availability of Pedro de la Vega, who has been now all in at training for at least 2 weeks, and according to Brian, he was available to play against Austin. He just elected not to play him for more strategic reasons. But it sounds like he is very much available this week. I would be shocked at this point if he doesn't play.
Yeah, he has to play, right? I mean, you're absolutely right. He's got to get some minutes. Even if he doesn't start, there has to be almost a trigger minute where, like, if the scoreline allows it, right?
If 60 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
If the scoreline allows it, you bring him in at 60 and you have him play 30. You test that knee. He got a cortisone shot, according to Brian Smetzer.
Yeah.
That's got to be working on him. We talked to him briefly off the mics, and he seems to be in good spirits. He seems to feel like he is ready to go.
He was out doing extra training on his own, just kind of taking penalties and free kicks and doing the stuff that, to me, say, I'm excited to be here. I'm just want more minutes. And so his whole energy seems like a player who is ready to contribute.
Yeah, and he's without a doubt a guy that he might not tell you that he wants to play every minute of every game, and he's always going to have the right answer. But he wants to play every minute of every game. You know, he wants to be out there. He loves that idea of being the guy that makes the crowd go crazy, and he being the guy that leads this team into some scores. That is what he wants to do. So yeah, I without a doubt think that he is ready to go. He is definitely an X factor, but it does concern me. It does concern me. I want to see him out there more consistently.
And it's going to be a concern until he's playing, starting and playing 60 minutes and playing as long as they need him to play. It's not going to go away until he shows us, right? That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and all this bad thoughts go through your head about the injury prone stuff that we kind of left in the past, right? And so now all those things start to gloom, and I've been looking into the tendonitis, and it's not necessarily something you can just
wish away.
Yeah, or surgery even.
Right.
Like you can't just clean
just
up.
Rest. It's just kind of getting rest, and it's something that probably won't be completely healed until he gets an off season to just let it rest. And because at some point he's going to have to just play through some degree of pain and hope it doesn't get worse, and hope that when he gets warmed up and he gets going that he's feeling fine. I mean, for what it's worth, he looks great out on the training pitch.
He does.
He does not look like he's carrying an injury. He does not look limited. He looks sharp. So, hopefully this is a sign that he's, going to be ready to go and he'll be starting games. Hopefully, I would hope by the Portland game he's starting.
Yeah, and luckily you have a good system right now with Ferreira on one side, Paul Rothberg likely that guy there. This Vancouver team is going to test both of those guys,
yes,
in my opinion. I think that just watching them over the midweek, although it was, and we'll talk about Vancouver there at the end, but it will be a good parameter for everyone, even all the way down to Steph or Andrew. Obviously, probably like the Steph, and obviously the pivots and everybody. This is going to be a good parameter to see where the team is at. Is it a must win?
I mean, I would say it's a must win from a psychological perspective. I don't know that it's a must win from there's no mathematical reasons that they absolutely have to win this game. The reality is that they are almost certainly going to make the playoffs. It would be very unlikely that they're going to make the playoffs anything less than a 7 seed, almost no matter what happens in this game. But man, it would just feel good psychologically to get another win and to beat a good team. I mean, that's the thing, is that for as good as they've been this year at times, they don't have a lot of signature wins over good teams. League's Cup final being an obvious exception there. But they've been good at home. They've been very good at home. But this is really feels like a game that they should win. That if they believe that they are MLS Cup contenders, beating yes, one of the best teams in the league at home is sort of that's the bar you've set. This is, at this point, just making the playoffs is not a notable achievement for this team. This, they have shown that they are capable of winning Leagues Cup. And so obviously their aspirations need to be winning MLS Cup. And if they aren't, so this is the kind of game that you need to win if you think you can win MLS Cup. Yeah,
and luckily, this is a sort of situation that the Sounders have done well in. Right. Is the tough teams, the big moments, the games that they need, they seem to win. The random Saturday against the LA Galaxy, or the midweek game at Fort Lauderdale, maybe not so much, but it does feel like this is the sort of game where the team plays at its best. So I think that's what we can hope that's the case against Vancouver.
Yeah, and so two other kind of question marks, I think, in the starting lineup right now. Maybe not acutely for this week, but over the last few weeks of the season is at goalkeeper, where it does seem like it's Stefan Fry's job to lose, essentially, and at striker, where it seems like it's Danny Masovsky still, but like I think we all expect Jordan Morris to ultimately be the starter sooner or later.
Let's start with stuffs that I think is the easiest one to kind of equate for, because I feel like Brian, he's never going to necessarily be a straight shooter when it comes to that question right now.
Right.
But to me, a lot of what he says indicates that there really isn't a controversy, that he's sticking with stuff. And I say that just by, when he's played stuff, obviously over the weekend, there was no stuff because there was an illness, but I have almost no doubt that Steph is going to be back on goal for this Vancouver game. And today he said that we are blessed to have two very good goalkeepers, right? So that just to me says, I don't necessarily want to have the debate or to talk about the debate. We just have to go good goalkeepers. But if I could, bet on who it will be on goal unless something goes wrong, it would be Steph.
Yeah, and I think last week was sort of Andrew Thomas's chance to push the door open. And he made a couple good saves, but they also gave up 2 goals. He wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but if he was going to grab that job and make it his, it seemed like that was maybe his opportunity. And again, no fault of his own. I think both goals he gave up were goals that Steph would have given up. He makes at least 1 or 2 saves that you can argue Steph may not have made. But he didn't play out of his mind. And it feels like unless there's a compelling reason to make a change, Steph's going to be the goalkeeper, for better, for worse.
And I think that we kind of saw the competition at a more even field. And I hate to say it that way, but a lot of the latest goals given up by Steph had been a product of some very bad turnovers or a very bad situation. I've talked tiresomely about how soccer can be circumstantial, and that therefore is difficult to really, grade one goalkeeper over another.
Right.
And in this game, it was a lot of what we saw against the LA Galaxy, where you had opportunities, you had chances, you weren't able to convert. You give up a very easy, very bad turnover to Rubio. Rubio takes the ball from Jackson Reagan, has all of the real estate to run into, puts the ball in the back of the net. There's nothing that I think Andrew or Steph could have done in that case, but I feel like sometimes people need that visualization that Steph is not Superman or Aquaman, because apparently he looks more like Aquaman sometimes.
Andrew Thomas, you mean?
Andrew Thomas, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, he is a great goalkeeper. He's very athletic, but he can't just stop it all. And then the second goal, once again, is a bad markup by Reed, and a whole cascading errors that lead to a bad goal in front of goal. So to me, Steph continues to be the right choice. He sounds like that is what it is. And the controversy might be starting to just die down.
Yeah. I mean, again, until Steph does something egregiously wrong, which I don't really think is going to happen. I mean, he's making whatever. We don't have to relitigate all this, but it's just that I just think my point is that he's going to have to almost play himself out of the job. At least that's what it seems to me. And that doesn't seem like it's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't happen because I want the Sounders to play well. So, and I have every confidence that Steph will do well. So, if you can get a shutout here, would go a long way to just sort of like putting this all to bed.
Right. Hopefully it's not a shootout. And I don't think it is. I mean, I honestly, in my calculations, I have a 1-1 draw. I don't know if that's going to be, but regardless, I feel like this is going to be a game that hopefully doesn't have a lot of goals and that controversy will die down. Now, the other position that you brought up, I think that's one that maybe some people are having a hard time with, but I don't seem to be. I look at Jordan Morris in the time that he's gotten, and when he comes off the bench, the positions that he gets to, the assist that he's given, the opportunities that he's created. Yes, he missed a couple of goals in front of Austin. It's very good goalkeeper. So I wouldn't even say missed. I think Stuver got the best of Jordan Morris in those situations. But I like what I see out of Jordan Morris. And I know that we are in the age of what have you done for me lately, and it's very easy to say, look at the stats, look at what Danny's done, and credit to him, and thank you for being part of what the Sounders have been able to create in 2025. But I cannot look at both of those players and have any doubt on who I think should be the starting striker for this team.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I get it. Danny Musovski is playing great. He's putting his chances away for the most part. He had an assist against Austin. Good for him. He's making the most of his opportunities. But every time I see them both on the field, I see the way that teams have to react to Jordan. I see the way that the movements that he's making, and it's just this is not a knock on Danny, but Jordan is just such a more dynamic player, and he's not doing anything to, he's not wasteful. He's not like blowing chances. He's, I think at least on one of those, Stuver makes a great save, and then he absolutely robs Morris from getting an assist on the Manungu one. So I think I still just, until I see otherwise, I just feel like Jordan is going to be the starter. Now, I don't think he's going to be the starter necessarily this week, which is great.
Yeah.
Danny Musovski. And what's funny is that Danny could come out here and score a hat trick, and it's probably still Jordan Morris' job.
I would still tell you that.
Right.
I'm glad that you say that, because if that does happen, then it's going to be like, oh, see, what were you guys talking about? No, that is exactly the perfect argument. Danny could come here and put up a hat trick, and you would still not be able to tell me that Jordan wouldn't be the better option. Again, that's not a knock on Danny. It's just the way the roster is set up and the difference of talent. So to me, I've been encouraged by it. You mentioned it perfectly. When it comes to Stuver's performance, was all out. Christian had one that he took off right off goal.
Yes.
The Manungu one. Two from Jordan.
Yeah.
He snatches Ferreira in that one. Maybe he should have shot that, but he tries to get through him. So he was just a very good keeper in that particular game. But there were moments to me that I just feel like Jordan is starting to find his rhythm, and that's the other part. He's just starting to find his rhythm.
And him and Ferreira look like they could be something special. If that really gets some time to. If they can get that going by the time the playoffs start, that's a really good partnership. And you can just see the way that they talk about playing with one another, Jesus and Jordan. They seem to genuinely love playing with each other. They seem to really like each other personally. And it seems like it has a lot of potential to be a very powerful combination. You throw Albert Rusnak in there, you throw Pedro de la Vega in there. This has the potential. It already is by the numbers one of the best attacks in the league. But if they can get those four players all firing and playing together, this is a potentially really, really good offense.
And don't let me go through this show without giving Ferreira his flowers, man. I loved what he brought onto the field, right? He had some tightness. He didn't start. He came on. He obviously is the guy that needs to be playing that position because of the runs he makes, the connectivity, that little back heel to Jordan. Oh, man, just chef's kiss. It was so good. It was so well timed. So to me, and I've said this over and over again, he's continuing to progress. He hasn't peaked, and I'm just excited to what this attack could look like when he's in full form, when Jordan's in full form. I mean, this is going to be a very good attack.
I totally agree. I'm very excited about seeing what they look like this weekend, because I think it's a great test, even if it's not sort of like the A lineup at the beginning. But this is, this has some potential. I'm oddly optimistic about this game, especially considering the two fortunes of this. But maybe that's a good segue. We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll spend a little bit more time focusing on the Whitecaps and what we expect to see this weekend. You're listening to Nos Audietes on the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, which now includes Nos Audietes, Lobbing Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible through our paid subscribers. Plans start as low as $30 a year and allow us to remain independent and mostly ad-free. Subscribers get access to all our written and podcast content, including a full-text RSS feed and a mostly ad-free podcast feed that includes every show in one spot. If you really like what we're doing, though, I'd encourage you to sign up at our higher tiers, which include all sorts of various perks. The most popular of those is our members-only Discord, where the real Sounders sickos hang out. I know I've called this group the smartest, funniest, and best-informed Sounders fans in the world, but it's more than the rough equivalent of a Sounders Mensa meeting. Discord is where we make things happen, like for real. You know the promotion the Sounders ran that offered fans the opportunity to trade in their Messi jersey for a Paul Rothrock one? That originated in our community. You'll not only be the first to know about stuff, but you also have a semi-direct line to the movers and shakers at the Sounders organization. If you want to be one of the totally normal people who occupy the Sounder at Heart Discord, just become a supporter of Sounder at Heart. Anyway, thanks for listening, and go Durs. Nos Audietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Hacks and Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Hacks and Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at hacksandferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code SOUNDERATHEART, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to hacksandferments.com, use the code SOUNDERATHEART at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Hacks and Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. Welcome back to Nos Audietes on the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. So we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about the Whitecaps. We are also going to share a little bit of information that we've been able to get about Obed Vargas' situation. He's obviously with the U20, the Mexico U20 team at the World Cup, but there's maybe some developments going on behind the scenes about teams that might be interested in him. So that'll be some good fodder. We'll just use that as a teaser right now to get you to the end of the show. But let's talk about the Whitecaps a little. They played midweek this week. They played the Timbers. They tied the Timbers. They needed a relatively late goal. They could have won the game very easily. Actually, Brian White missed an absolute sitter. Really, I don't want to be hyperbolic about it, but you don't get much better chances. I think what happened is the ball came over the top, and I don't think he totally saw it. That's the only way to sort of explain, because he ends up missing a wide open net. But they get a tie. The good news is that it keeps the Timbers a little bit farther behind. It keeps them from catching the Sounders on points, which is important. It also keeps, technically, mathematically speaking, the Cascadia Cup is still open for play. It's a long shot. The Sounders would basically need to win this game against the Whitecaps by 4 goals, and then they'd have to beat the Timbers by 2 goals. That would allow them to close the gap, to erase the gap in the goal difference standings. But the Sounders can catch the Whitecaps on points just by winning these last 2 games. That's secondary, though, to an important game just from a psychological standpoint. I think there is the Sounders, if they have any hope at all of getting 4th in the West, this is a total must win.
Yes.
But even if they want to just get the season sort of like corrected and going back in the right direction, they need to get 3 points here. What have you seen from the Whitecaps? It was a very rotated lineup to start on Wednesday, but then by the end of the game, they had sort of their first choice group on the field.
Yeah, it was a bit of a unlike Whitecaps performance, which I don't know if I like or dislike. And let me kind of explain to you why. This was a game against the Timbers where I don't know if by design or by the rotation, Vancouver absorbed a lot of pressure in the first 45 minutes. They had some possession, a lot of possession without...
Gave up a lot of shots, though.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of possession without any purpose. And the Timbers were really all over them. And they seem to be, I don't know if okay with it, but they were just doing a good job at just allowing them to get forward. And, Anthony was all over from that right winger position, and there were opportunities consistently. Kelsey had another one. There were, I think at halftime, there were something close to like 17 shots or
17-3 shot difference. And what was funny, though, is the only goal that the Timbers scored was this absolute banger from Kamal Miller from 25 yards out where he takes it on the half volley. But other than that, it was a lot of shots that weren't necessarily as dangerous as you probably would like. But yeah, it was unlike the Whitecaps because the Whitecaps are not used to being outshot 17-3 at home in any half. But it was kind of a weird game.
And that's what I don't know if I like it. So part of me was like, okay, maybe it's the rotation that they cannot hold the rhythm of play because they are a very vertical team. They like to get on the counter. They have a lot of speed out on the flanks. But they usually are more protagonistic with the ball. In this one, I don't know if they're kind of working on playing the Sounders a little deeper.
Maybe.
Right? If anything that the Sounders have had issues with this season has been breaking down teams. And if Jasper Sorensen has in any sort shape, way, or form figured out that could be a way to win, I would not like it for the Sounders' success purposes if this team was going to come in here and change the way they're played and just play completely against the run of play. The only thing that maybe makes me discard that idea is that by the end of the game, Vancouver did have more possession.
A lot more. They dominated the second half.
And when the second players came in and they had more of their preferred lineup, they were definitely a team that was more on the front foot. And at the end of, I don't know, the last 15 minutes is all Vancouver Whitecaps. And they could have easily won that game. But what we know is this. They're a very talented team. It sounds like Mueller will be back for this one. He's a guy that was doubtful or at least questionable. Brian White came on and scored and looked dangerous. And the one chance that you mentioned, I think that if he's in rhythm, he turns that foot completely and puts that in the back of the net. I think his hips didn't open up enough to get that shot off. Jalen Nelson is fast. He was
a handful.
He's an absolute handful. The two pivots in Kubas and Berhalter are as quality as it gets. So this is a talented team coming to Lumen Field.
Absolutely talented team. They are only 1 point, I believe, shy of the Supporter Shield lead right now. So they have a lot to play for. They're 1 point behind San Diego in the West. And where are they in the total table? Anyway, that's where they're 1 point back in the West. I don't know. They might be
a little bit farther back.
Farther back in the Supporter Shield, but they're in that race still.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of games coming up too. They still have Canadian Championship games to play. But this is a good team. I think people kind of started to forget about them a little bit because they had this amazing run to start the year. They get to the Champions Cup final. They get smashed in the Champions Cup final. And a lot of people, I think, at that point started just stopped paying attention.
Yeah, and then Pedro Vita left.
Right, but they've been a guy
that was so important. And then you were thinking, I was thinking that maybe the magic had left. And then I wasn't a big Mueller to MLS type of guy. And he's came on with this infectious, electric incredible energy, and now this team is rolling in all cylinders. So they're definitely a very good team. I've always liked Jasper Sorensen, and by always I mean when I started watching this Whitecaps team by him, because they are a team that is willing to win at all costs, and he is a guy that seems to put guys in the right positions. He understands what he needs to get out of his team. I think Ocampo has been a revelation for this team as well. He should be in the lineup for the Sounders game, and he's a wing back that the Sounders are going to have to keep in mind when it comes to those overlaps on the right side, because the guy is great on the dribble. He can finish. If you allow him to get to the end line, he's going to put consistent good services into the box. They're a good set piece team, Jeremiah.
Yeah.
They're a good set piece teams, and that's always a easy way to inflict a little bit of pain in the Sounders. You signed against the Galaxy, right? So you cannot fall asleep with this team. And that's why I'm excited for it. This is the type of game that the
Great
Sounders need to just not just win, because if you get a result but playing well, it would also be okay. But you just need to play well.
They need to play well, absolutely. And by the way, they're 4 points behind the Union for the Supporter Shield lead with a game in hand. So they are, if they don't win this game, it's going to be tough for them to win the Supporter Shield. But point being, this is one of the top teams in the league. They've been one of the top teams in the league all year. They are 6-1-3 across all competitions since July. So it's a good team. It's a good team that's gonna ask a lot of good questions of the Sounders. It'll be interesting to see what their starting lineup looks like. Berhalter did start on the midweek. I would assume he'll start. But whether or not Brian White, that was his first game back, I believe, from injury.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see if he starts. I would guess that Mueller wouldn't start. He hasn't started for the last couple games. He's been nursing an injury.
That's a safe bet, yeah.
It seems like he'll probably be coming off the bench, but they're a good defensive team. They're a good possession team. They are not afraid of pressing. The one good thing is that the Sounders have historically done well against teams at home, especially who want to play. And assuming they don't come in here and sort of throw a wrinkle at things, they tend to want to play. So this is potentially, that's a bodes well for the Sounders, that they're not going to just come in here and try to park the bus.
Yeah, and I was surprised, not pleasantly, but I was impressed with Kenji Cabrera's game. He is a Peruvian player from Melgar, 22-year-old, a guy that I knew of, but I didn't think he was going to have such a quick impact. But in this game, playing the 10, that he's probably going to hold for Mueller until he gets back, he was very good, very dynamic. He was good on the ball. Seems to have a good sense for through balls. So yeah, man, just a lot of little pieces there for Vancouver that Seattle's going to have to be on point and defensively, right? That's where we want to see this team get back to that Sounders' best defense of last season, right?
Right.
Is that ability to just dominate and control that phase of the game.
Yeah, that has been one of the constant frustrations that I think we've all sort of just expected to eventually kick in. Like, this has been the best defense in MLS the last 2 seasons. And they had the great Leagues Cup run where they only give up 2 goals in 6 games. They pitched 4 shutouts. But really, other than Leagues Cup, they have not had an extended run of really outstanding defensive play. And I don't know if there's a good explanation for it, because it's basically the same personnel that they had last year for the most part, in the defense especially. There's been some rotation with Yamar and Reagan suffering some injuries. Nuhu's had some absences, but it's, they've all been playing the last few weeks, and you sort of just expect it to eventually kick in.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's been mental lapses, and I sound like this broken record, but that is what it is, right? It's just specific moments where, and it could be conceptual, because if there's a reality, regardless of whether Brian or anybody with the Sounders coaching staff would ever admit it, is that this team is more aggressive offensively, even more aggressive defensively. They press higher, they push the line of confrontation. They're obviously a team that's excited to create volume of play, and so is the 87th minute, and you're kind of looking for a third goal against the Galaxy, and all of a sudden you're on the wrong side of the ball, and you give up up an equalizer on a throw-in, right? Similarly against Austin, maybe you're eager because you had some guys in that were playing well, and you're thinking that you can win that game.
I mean, I definitely think
but it's a 1-1.
Right.
Right?
I think their mental position at the end of the game was, how do we get a goal here? Not how do we keep Austin from scoring?
Exactly. So that part of it is like, okay, so I understand it. But then again, they're in possession. You have to get back.
Yeah.
You can't allow Pereira to just take that free, easy ball into the 18. So those are the things that Seattle just needs to just sharpen. But I do think that maybe that little step back on defense has to do with just concepts that, for better or for worse, have worked offensively, but they've, made it difficult for us to watch defensively.
Absolutely. All right. Well, the last thing we wanted to talk about this week was the situation around Obed Vargas. You've started to hear some whispers that there are, because one of the constants has been, okay, we keep hearing that Obed Vargas is this highly sought after prospect, but the only reports really have been interest from Mexico, where Tigres supposedly has an $8 million standing offer for him, and the Sounders don't seem all that inclined to send him to Mexico. He doesn't seem all that inclined to. He's made it pretty clear that he would rather start. His next step should be towards Europe. But but there hasn't been as much smoke coming out of Europe. What are you hearing?
This is something that I've been kind of really on top of, and I don't know necessarily to report it or not, but I feel like our audience would appreciate this, especially with the lack of other interesting news in the regard of transfers and things. But I thought that I had mentioned before that PSV was a team that was very high and interested on Obed Vargas. That's still the case.
Netherlands.
Yep, one of the best Dutch teams. A team that is also very high on Mexican players. A ton of them have gone through there.
That's what Chucky
They've developed.
Right?
Chucky Lozano was there. There's been a couple of others.
That's where Ricardo Pepi is right now. It's where there's a lot of CONCACAF players that have gone to PSV. Malik Tillman is there right now.
So they definitely shop here. And they are a team that I would think MLS player would love to go there and play. This one that I recently has come up is just as interested, if not more, because they've had a scout watching him as of the latest games, unfortunately, including that LA Galaxy game here at Lumen Field. But he's Club Brugge FC from Club Brugge,
yes,
Kiev of the Belgian Pro League. They're currently third on the Belgian Pro League.
One of the Belgian powers.
Definitely one of the Belgian powers, and a team that was actually playing Champions League, and a team that has a lot of ambition for what next year could provide them. So they're looking for a featured midfielder that could be, in MLS words, a franchise player, right? A guy that's going to be able to come in, stay a long time, and then they could eventually move on from him. Yeah. But they want somebody that's going to perform. It's not a guy that they're just buying to sell. They're buying so he can help get that team into either an international tournament win or a domestic title. But they seem to be very high on what Obed Vargas can provide.
Yeah, and both PSV and Bruges are clubs where there's a reasonable expectation that they will increase their value if they play well. I would say there's a very good possibility.
Absolutely.
And so it's sort of like they're teams that can afford to pay a fair amount up front, but if you get a sell-on clause, which I would assume the Sounders would be very interested in, a 20 or 30% sell-on clause, is that there's actual real possibility that that's going to pay off. In fact, it might pay off more than the original transfer fee, because that's sort of the kind of business that gets done when players are coming out of Belgium or Netherlands into the bigger European leagues.
Oh yeah, baby! Just ask. I think it was Águilas. I forget the team that had John Hyder Duran, who was in Chicago Fire, then in Aston Villa, and eventually in the Saudi League. I think it was 130 million that they sold him for. This little team ended up getting like I don't know, 15 million that are like
exactly.
nothing. So yeah, that could go a long ways. But I think Obed, and we all have seen him being a guy that in the European leagues, he has all the attributes. He has the physical ability. He has the IQ. He's a very technical player. And beyond that, I see a young man that has the mental fortitude to play there, because it's not easy. Look, I've seen very good players go to Europe, go to the Turkish league. There's a good league, but life is different there, right? And you have to be ready to have that impact of culture, that impact of not having your boys around, that impact of not knowing the language. There's a lot of barriers that make it difficult for players, but I see it in Obed. So for me, even a team like Bruges, I would love to see him in PSV, but even a team like Bruges where he could even be more of the face of the team,
right,
where he's the one that this is my squad. I kind of dig that. I dig that storyline of Obed going from the Sounders to being the guy that creates and makes a run in the Champions League for this team, right? So sometimes we go with we want to see our players in Manchester City and PSG and all of the Atletico Madrid, but sometimes when you go to the small teams and you could be that guy that just puts them onto another level, man, that's an even bigger story.
Yeah, I think it would be potentially either one of those would be very good landing spots. What are you hearing though in terms of the extension talks? Like, we know the Sounders have been talking to Obed about wanting to sort of like get him on a longer term deals that sort of like just creates a little sense of security for the Sounders so that they don't have to worry about potentially losing him for free. But it seems like those talks have maybe, if not stalled, there's a little bit of they're in a tough spot, it seems.
I think they have stalled. As recently as yesterday, I would tell you that they're starting. I'm getting a better sense that he's tilting towards a resolution. It feels like with the U20, obviously venture now that he's going to be on, with obviously a lot of interest around for the player and kind of what they see this team doing in 2026. They feel positive that there's going to be a resolution, but it's going to take a little bit more from the Sounders. I'll just leave it there. It's going to take a little bit more from the Sounders. And obviously this is a situation where we all know that there's a number, right? But there also has to be a commitment from both sides on, okay, this is what we expect out of this, right? So negotiations have all kinds of different layers that go from the most reasonable, oh, that makes sense, to the, oh, wow, is that what they're really asking for? So without adding too much on kind of what I know, I'll just say that the last sense that I got out of this whole talk is that I think it might work out.
Okay. I mean, I would say that's positive.
Yeah. I would say that that's positive, but there's clearly a lot to think about. I don't know. People might think that Obed doesn't have a lot of leverage here, but I feel like he maybe does have a little bit of leverage, just because he understands that the Sounders are obviously an organization that don't want to paint themselves as a team that's going to hold the team hostage, or that is not trying to adequately incentivize their players and give them what they deserve. And obviously the Sounders also have a little bit of that, saying, okay, look, this is what we can provide you. This is where we're going to lay the line. But I do think that there is a little bit of sense of, because of all of the reflectors that are currently on top of Obed Vargas, that maybe there's a little leverage on the side of Obed Vargas.
Yeah, and I think the Sounders are very aware that this is an opportunity for them to show that they can sell players. Like, they know that they can't hold Obed back. If a real offer comes in, I think believe they have to accept that offer. And this is just another example of sort of like the progression of the Sounders organization. I think that's, they should do that. They should be helping players get to where they want to be, whether that's being here or that's being somewhere else. That's I think that's fine.
Yeah, you bring optics a lot, and I love that because there is a sense of optics, right? I mean, the Sounders have this very good, excellent reputation for having this great academy that sustains the club,
Right.
that builds this talent. But I feel like the next step would be, hey, they could sell to European teams, right? And although that's not maybe something that has been a priority for the team in the past, it is a caveat that gives you a little bit of that finesse or whatever it is that, oh, wow, that's very interesting. So it's a situation to watch, but I have recently feel like it's going in the right direction, or it's starting to tilt in the right direction.
Okay. Well, that feels like a pretty good place to end this episode of Nos Arietes on the Sounder Heart Podcast Network. I am Jeremiah Oshan, signing off for Niko Moreno, who you can also find on Pulso Sports. You can find him on Blue Sky at El Rolo NW, as well as Lobbing Scorchers and, of course, Nos Arietes. I am Jeremiah Oshan. We'll catch you next time.
Let's go, Sounders.